I'll start with the Dolphins defense. Man, they're an attacking group. They're a blitzing group.
And it's pulled in by George Pickens.
Tariq obviously is a vertical threat. Waddle, they drafted. They stretch the field vertically. They do so very well.
In trouble, Brady, down he goes.
Connor Hayward down the middle of the field. Touchdown, Peyton Claypool. Wow.
Road game venue, hostile environment. We have good work days, good urgency, build a plan, and then step into a stadium on Sunday night and make that plan a reality.
Anytime you play teams that have speed like that, you're obviously aware of it, but you can't be scared of it. You know where they're good at, and you do things to try to take it away. And obviously, we're not going to be able to cover them all. Man to man, running around all day. That's not going to be the deal. But we're going to have to think of some things, put our guys in good positions where they're able to maybe to catch some of these routes, these crossers or deep balls, and keep the big ones off of us.
Hi everybody, I'm Missi Matthews and welcome to the Matchup Show presented by Unibet. The Steelers heading to Miami for a Sunday night matchup with the Dolphins. They are riding a 3-game losing streak. As we know, the Steelers broke their 4-game. We're going to break it all down for you as they get their quarterback back, and hopefully the Steelers get some defensive players back as well. We have today joining me Mike Prisuta of the DVE Morning Show and Steelers.com, and former Steelers outside linebacker, JMU Hall of Famer, and
Hall
from
of Fame,
SNR, Arthur Moats. We need to start, guys. You heard from the Steelers defensive coordinator there. He suggested when you're trying to stop Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, jump on a motorcycle or a car down the field to do that. Triv, what do you do with these guys?
Better be a fast car, and I don't know. That conversation lasted a while with Terrell Austin's this morning, and one of the things I was trying to find out from him was, are they more worried about the go balls and just the straight deep stuff, or the crossing routes? Because these guys, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, are so quick. They can catch one on you over the middle, and then you think you have an angle, and they're running at speed, and they get to the boundary and turn it up on you, and they're gone. Tyreek Hill also has an ability, and I can't really think of a guy to compare him to in this vein, but he can go sit down in the middle of his zone and catch the ball and then turn around, and he gets from 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye. If you play deep, the underneath and middle's open. If you come up and take that away, you risk having them throw the ball over your head. I would say the way you stop them is possess the ball for about 40 minutes, and when they're out there, kill the quarterback. Get the offense at the very start, the front end of the passing play. Make life miserable for Tua, and you got a shot.
Man, when you break it down like that, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, obviously they both present a ton of challenges because of the speed, the run after catch that you just talked about. So
there it is right there. Look at that. Look how fast he goes.
Absolutely.
From standing still, he's 20 yards.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Arthur.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. But the thing is this, though, man, when you're talking about competing against these guys, there's a couple of things you have to do. When you're playing your traditional zones like a cover 3, and like you're seeing on tape right there, you have to tackle that catch. And that is the difficult part when you're talking about Tyreek. He could take a 3-yard catch and turn it into a 12-yard like you're seeing right here. But that does stem to tackling. That does stem to just your basic and routine fundamentals. So when you're talking about your secondary, yes, we understand the speed element, but the fundamentals of tackling the catch, not allowing 3- and 5-yard routes to become explosive plays, that becomes even more so at the forefront. But the other thing is this, when you're talking about specifics of coverages, man, Tampa 2, you can work with. When you're talking about 2-man, when you're looking at some of your sub-package ball, you can work with. And with both of those defenses in particular, why I like them against these type of receivers, with your corners, they can be aggressive. They can get hands on these guys to ultimately disrupt some of that speed. But they also are protected over top with these safeties. And in Tampa 2, you just happen to have that linebacker who's your middle runner, kind of giving you that extra added protection across the middle of the field. So you can do some of those things, but the tackling has to be on point. And in terms of the safety play, you have to keep a lid on this defense, because that is this Miami Dolphins offense. Let's not make any bones about it. They're only explosive because of those two guys. Their offense is only scary because of those two guys. Everything else that this Dolphins offense does is very average, in my opinion. But when you're watching how those guys can take a routine out route and turn it into a 15-yard gain, that's the tricky part. But it really boils down to the tackling element. And I think with this particular unit, our DBs in particular, they will be able to handle that part of it.
Arthur, on Monday after the win over the Buccaneers, you talked about the fundamentals, the good tackling that we saw against Tom Brady and his offense. Completely different with a mobile quarterback, but what can they build on that they did well for this game, and also hoping that you get Minkah Fitzpatrick and guys like that back in your lineup?
Well, yeah, of course, having Minkah back is going to help out in a major way because we know how elite he is and just his ability to bait quarterbacks. But more importantly, the carryover is this. Last week, we won our one-on-ones up front. You talk about Alex Highsmith, Larry Ogunjobi, Cam Hayward, Malik Reed even joining the party. When you win one-on-ones, you create that type of environment. And when you're looking at this Dolphins offensive line, they have some leaky protection up front, man. Greg Little, he's obviously their tackle that traditionally starts on the right, but has been playing some left as well. He struggles at times with one-on-ones, man. And when you're looking at a guy like Alex Highsmith, who's currently leading the league in sacks, that's one of those guys where you're saying you have to be a part of this defense as well. When we talk Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it's not just on these corners and safeties. It's also on you. You when you're one-on-one up front, and those guys aren't as big of X factors anymore. So that to me is that carryover that we really want to see. Beautiful play right there. Alex Highsmith creating a splash play. And that's what we can have because it's going to be another favorable matchup for him this week.
Yeah, it's funny. We go right from the Tampa highlights of the Cincinnati game. I thought that the two best games that the defensive front has played, in my estimation, were against the Bengals and against Tampa Bay. And they got another opportunity. Arthur, you mentioned the tackle situation is unsettled. The starters on opening day, neither one of them played for Miami last Sunday against Minnesota. Terron Armstead, I don't know if he's going to play or not. The other guy's on IR, Austin Jackson. He may come off, he may not. But if they can take advantage and dictate up front, I would throw Isaiah Loudermilk into that mix as well, along with Hayward and Ogunjobi and Highsmith. They really did dictate the game from the trench, and that's what I was talking about with, get to Tua. That's how you get to the receivers.
No, absolutely, man. Win up front. And the way these guys are playing, man, you're hoping that they can carry over that momentum from last week's performance against Tampa.
Arthur, Tua is a lefty. What does that do in terms of a defensive game plan?
Oh, man, it's one of those things where all your plays are essentially flipped. When instead of you getting your traditional play action passes where most offenses are right-handed because your quarterback is right-handed, everything is going to be to the left. So a guy like Alex Highsmith, who traditionally is more so on the backside of some of this stuff, now he's in that action. When you're talking about rushing the passer, instead of you coming from the blind side where that quarterback can't see you and now you're necessarily hunting the ball, well, now it's a different animal because he can see you. So now in terms of your rush angle, maintaining that leverage on the upfield shoulder becomes more prevalent because this guy can be elusive now. He can actually notice you, so you're not going to surprise him. And then in terms of the cornerback play, guys that are traditionally on the backside of some of these routes, when you talk about Cam Sutton traditionally being on our right side of the defense, well, now he's going to be involved in a lot more of the passing concepts towards him. So it's just differences in that. Not saying that these guys haven't experienced it throughout the season thus far, because every team is going to run right-handed and left-handed plays. It's just when you're facing a left-handed quarterback, instead of it being 30% of those plays coming over there, now it's going to be about 60 to 70% of those plays coming towards you on that side of the field. So just in that element is the biggest difference. But other than that, if they trust their fundamentals in their eyes, everything should fall into place for them.
Triv, in terms of Tua, he missed the past. They lost the last 3 games without him, won the first 3. What did you see weeks 1 through 3 and what you anticipate you'll maybe see on Sunday from him?
I would expect him to play well. Now, it's always, somewhat of an unknown when a quarterback is coming off a concussion, but he's had an extended period to recover from this. And their offense, to me at least, did not change, even with Skylar Thompson starting that Vikings game. And then Teddy Bridgewater had to come in when Thompson got hurt last Sunday, and he threw for 300 and something yards in 2.5 quarters. I mean, they're still going to try to take advantage of the receivers and do what they do. I've always thought a lot of Tua. I know rookie quarterbacks don't always hit the ground running right away in their careers, but I still remember him at Alabama. I thought he threw one of the prettiest deep balls I've ever seen a college player be able to throw. And I think this team will be aggressive. I'm still wondering why Tampa Bay did not attack that makeshift secondary that the Steelers threw at the Buccaneers last Sunday way more often than the Buccaneers did. That's something for them to figure out. But I don't think you're going to see Miami with the run-pass ratio of 28-20 late in the third quarter the way it was in that Tampa game, even if the Steelers defensive backs get healthy. Some of these highlights we're seeing, you see the angles and how you can get tricked. Arthur, I'm sure you've come across this in your career. You can't replicate it in practice because you don't have guys that are that fast. And you see a play unfold and you think, okay, I got this guy. And then you get there and he's already gone. Really preventing the big plays and your other point about tackling the catch, I think are paramount going into this Miami game.
No, absolutely. And man, when you brought up another part that, we kind of overlook at times, but you're right, man, you might watch them run these routes on film and you think you have them on film. You're going to see them in walkthroughs and you're going to say, I got this. You're going to watch it in practice versus our practice squad receivers and feel like, man, I understand this concept. Man, this is not going to sneak up on me. And when you get out there and Tyreek Hill is the one running it and you're like, I've never seen this play run like this at this speed before, that's the adjustment that you're talking about. And yes, it does suck, man, in a major way. And
you're honest. We like that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you can't prepare for it until you get in that stadium and you feel that speed. You just hope that the first time you experience it, it's on an incompletion or they don't throw it there, because that is a part of that adjustment. But more importantly, when you're talking about the Dolphins, though, they are very true to who they are, regardless of who's at quarterback, whether it was Skylar Thompson, Teddy Bridgewater, or Tua Tagovailoa. They're going to run play action and they're going to take shots, man. They rather take their shots vertically or they're going to get these crossing routes that Prisuta broke down, and they're going to try to get runs after catch, but they will throw this ball. They're not going to do like Tampa did and kind of outsmart themselves, so to speak. Miami is going to live and die by this throwing situation, and more importantly, through Tyreek and Jalen. And when you look at their numbers on the season, it's a reason why Tyreek Hill leads the league in receiving yards and Jalen Waddle's number 5 in the league in receiving yards. They are very intentional in terms of scheming those guys up and getting those balls to those guys and stuff like that on the perimeter.
Yeah, just to belabor the point and beat the dead horse, I don't know if we can dial up that Jalen Waddle touchdown against New England. I saw it flash through a couple of times on the highlight package, but 3 guys for the Patriots are converging. Right. It was a 4th down, and it's a short pass, and it turns into a long run touchdown. That was right at the end of the first half. I think it was 4th and 6 or something. They went for it, and the play just exploded. And that's these guys. Yeah. It's almost similar to Arthur. I'm sure you were coached this way when you were playing a great running back. You have to stop him every time because the one time you don't, he could go 80 yards. These guys could be 100%. These guys could be relatively quiet, and then all of a sudden it's 65 yards, and here comes the place kicker for the extra point.
Did it versus New England. Also had a 3rd and 17 against the Buffalo Bills as well. That's how they do it, man. They'll take a 6 or 7 yard route and explode after the catch, man.
All right, let's take a look now at
Are we clear on that? Did we make that point?
I think we got that one. Okay. I think we're good. So that's why we're going to take a look at our opening lines for Week 7 across the league, presented by Unibet Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you're in Pennsylvania and ready to place your wagers on any of this weekend's matchups, just download the Unibet PA app or visit pa.unibet.com.
I like how it looks like a football field. They do the green and white.
We did that for you.
Yeah.
All right, we have much more coming up here on the Matchup Show, including talking about the Steelers' offense and who needs to get the game ball to get the win. We will discuss that and much more when we return. In terms of the wide receiver group, did you feel like this was one of the best games you guys were able to put together and work in unison almost?
Yeah, for sure. Probably on the season. I think there's just still more on the table. I think we should be still doing a little bit more for the team, but we're doing as much as we can, and I think it's trending upwards.
All right, and I had a chance to sit down with Chase Claypool. As you saw, you can watch more of that on Friday on the Steelers official YouTube page. Welcome back to the Matchup Show. Guys, we got to talk about the Steelers offense. We saw what Chase did, especially on 3rd down conversions against the Bucs. What's the biggest takeaway in terms of what they need to do this week for you, Arthur?
Man, the thing for me is just continuing with the consistency. When you look at the wide receivers this past game, all three of those guys, in terms of George Pickens, Chase Claypool, and Deontay Johnson, came up with consistent catches. And what did that do? It didn't matter if it was Kenny at quarterback or Mitch. It allowed the drives to be sustained. It allowed them to make, conversions on third down and ultimately make that Buccaneers defense have to respect them a little bit more. So when I think of this offense, I don't think it has to do anything over the top that they aren't capable of doing. No, we just need to keep building upon what we already are seeing right now. We know that progression at times with a young team is not always going to be linear. But when you are in a situation where they're coming off of a hot game, you want to try to build on that as much as you can. So to me, I think that consistency in that room right there is going to be paramount for this team to continue going forward, because this is a very favorable matchup for these receivers this week. And when you're talking about attacking this Dolphins defense, these are the areas that you want to go to right here, man. And so when I think of these receivers, I'm saying to myself, man, they just got to keep being consistent, keep catching these balls, and keep maintaining possession, and everything else will be fine.
Yeah, I concur. I think attack mode. I saw the Steelers in that fourth quarter against Tampa, particularly on the last drive when they killed the last 4 minutes and 38 seconds of the clock. There was a 3rd and 11 and a 3rd and 15, and they converted them both. And they did that by throwing either right at the sticks or past the sticks. There was a 3rd and 14 earlier in the game when Mitch Trubisky came in and he found George Pickens. We haven't seen these plays a ton this year. We haven't seen the Steelers attempt to make these kind of plays a ton this year. A lot of times on 3rd and long, you might see a sideways pass and then punt the ball if you don't turn that little play into a big one. I think everybody knew that punting the ball back to Tom Brady with time on the clock would be bad. And they really did what they could to avoid having to do that. And lo and behold, you had some guys who you perceived as playmakers coming into this season, Chase Claypool in particular, making big plays. I say keep the pedal down and attack these guys. Miami just put one of its starting cornerbacks, Nick Needham, on the injured reserve list this week. He was out during that Minnesota game, and the ripple effect that kicks everybody up. The sub-package guy has to now play every down. One of the guys who was in the 6 DB sub-package, now he's playing 5 and 6 and so on. Make them defend you. Make them prove to you that they can do it.
And I would also say this, to piggyback on that, the continuity is also picking up. When we talk about our offense, and we know the changes that we're going to have at quarterback, right? Well, it's understandable that, yes, at the beginning part of the season, it wasn't as smooth. The offense wasn't as aggressive. The passing combinations, they weren't as advanced. But now when you're looking at them at week 6, second half, it's like, man, okay, we're seeing how this thing is starting to get expanded even more. Coming into week 7, what are we talking about? Now we want to throw it first. We want to do more of that. And I think for Matt Canada, he's starting to trust these guys a lot more, and vice versa. The players are trusting him more. But that is a part of, playing in the NFL. It does take time to build that rapport because every season is very unique. And when you're talking about not having the continuity at quarterback that we've had in the past, this is a part of it. But it is very promising to see them come off of that performance the way that they did, and against a Bucs defense that is still a really good unit also.
Triv, if the Steelers get Pat Freiermuth back, who did not play against Tampa Bay, how does that change their offense, or does it not? It just helps add? I
think it just helps add. I talked with Chase Claypool about that a little bit today, and Claypool did what he did against Tampa in part because Freiermuth wasn't there, and they ran him out of the slot a lot, and he did a lot of damage in the middle of the field. If they can keep establishing that, now you get the safety starting to creep up and notice that stuff. Now your deep sideline stuff is open. Now your flat stuff is open a little bit more. Matt Canada also addressed that today, and to paraphrase him, he said, somebody should have a game such as the one that Claypool had more often than they've been having them. It's just a matter of taking advantage. If the defense is double covering Deontay Johnson, somebody else is going to have opportunity. If the defense is focused on George Pickens or Freiermuth, somebody else is going to have an opportunity. Figure out where your opportunity is and then exploit it, exploit it, exploit it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more right there, man. You hit it perfectly. And yes, when you're talking about Claypool working the slot like that, it is the natural mismatch. How many times have we watched games and we see our linebackers on wide receivers and how frustrating that can be at times? So it is good to be on the other end of that.
And he beat some good players too. Winfield is a really good safety. Levante David's a really good linebacker. Chase Claypool can do that.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just in zone concepts. Some of them were actually him running just legit routes, turning these guys around. So when you're seeing a guy capable of that, now it's like, hey, we just need more of it. The consistency, that's what we're asking now, because we know that you're capable of it. We've seen this too many times now. We just needed to be a reoccurring thing weekly. And he's more than capable of that. And I'm sure that Chase expects that from himself as well.
All right, Triv, if the Steelers get the win, who on offense would need to get the game ball to make that happen?
I'll take the low-hanging fruit and say Kenny Pickett. Most games the defense goes in and say, well, we'll try to limit the other team to 17 points, 20 points. I think in this game, a reasonable expectation for the defense is 24 points, 27 points. So that means the offense might have to get 27 or 30, and that's going to be a multi-layered challenge. They're going to have to possess the ball. They're going to have to score points when they have it, and they're going to have to make sure that they're the ones dictating the game. A lot of guys are going to have their hand in that pile. I'm also hopeful that Najee Harris has kind of a breakout game because maybe I'm making too much of it, but that last drive, the first down run when he gained 8 yards by running through about 5 Buccaneers, I thought that looked like last year's Najee Harris to me for the first time. But Pickett's the guy that's going to be calling the shots, pulling the trigger, making it happen more than anybody else. The Steelers are determined to get back to him, assuming everything works out with the concussion protocol. He needs to have himself a game Sunday night.
Man, now I will say this. I do know exactly that Najee play you're talking about. It was beautiful, but we also had a fullback on the field too. We need more of that if we're going to run the ball like that, man. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
Whatever it takes, Arthur. A wise man around here once said, whatever it takes.
Yeah, because I was watching the same play, and I'm like, man, this running play looks real different than every other running play we've seen this year. And I looked, I said, oh, this is 21 personnel. I see you, Derek White, out there. Okay, I like this. We can work with that. But in terms of who my offensive MVP or offensive game ball will need to go to when we're playing the Miami Dolphins, I think it's Deontay Johnson. When you talk about Deontay, obviously he's a guy that has come under fire for the lack of consistency at times. But the one thing that is very consistent in his game is his ability to get open. He wins one-on-ones a lot. And you talk about this Buccaneers game he just came off of, he was very, very good with his hands in terms of making sure that if it touched his hands, he completed it. When he is on, this guy can be dominant. And when you're talking about this Dolphins defense, what do they like to do? They like to play a ton of man coverage, but they also like to blitz. And when you're talking about blitzing, hot receivers become even more prevalent. Deontay wins one-on-ones. So when you're needing a guy to throw to right now, Deontay is the answer. But when they sit back and they just play cover one, Deontay is the guy that can win a one-on-one in that capacity as well. And we know what his ability to do in terms of the run after the catch. So to me, he is the guy that I'm looking at. He's the guy that I'm saying, okay, we know George Pickens is going to get attention. We know Claypool's coming off a big and he's going to get attention. It's going to be on you this week, man. But he's more than capable of it. And I'm excited to see him go to work.
I think there's plenty of game balls that you could put and go around to make this a win. I also think, guys, the offensive line, you have a quarterback who's coming off of being in concussion protocol. He needs to be protected. The Najee Harris running, we need the O-line and no penalties. I think, it's going to be a rowdy environment there. They are celebrating their 1972 team, the 50th anniversary of that. So I just think it's going to be one of those crazy games. So they're going to have to bring their A game as well.
You mentioned that 72 thing. I think it's a little insulting that the Steelers are in town. And
it's on purpose.
The game after the Immaculate Reception, they beat the Steelers in part because of a fake punt that wasn't even called. Little kid me still remembers watching Larry Seipel running down the field with the ball, helped change the game. But the offensive line point, Missy, those third and longs that I mentioned, and Mitch Trubisky emphasized this right after the game on Sunday, they gave him time to make those plays and make those throws. And those were plays that took some time to develop. So, yeah, they're coming, I think. I think the running game is knocking on the door. The protection has been better. Let's see if they can put it all together on one night and ruin their 1972 party.
Crash the party. I like it. All right, it is time now for our Yinz Chat question, our predictive question for today. Over under, guys, 40.5 receiving yards from Chase Claypool. You can download the Steelers mobile app and play Yinz Chat with an opportunity to win a Kenny Pickett autographed football. Questions are updated daily. You can answer the question too, Triv, over or under?
That's going over. He might do it on one play.
Okay, I like it. Arthur.
Yeah, I would agree. Over. You watch how he was able to come down with some of these catches last week, the confidence that he's playing with. Absolutely, he's going to be fired up.
Hand,
ready to go.
baby,
And
hot
he's gonna
hand.
get opportunities. He's going to get opportunities. It's man to man. He's going to have them opportunities.
Mapletron is back, and hopefully, as you said, consistently carries over to this game as well. All right, guys, thanks so much. It's been fun previewing the Sunday night matchup.
That slant play against
I
New
mean,
England.
I'll give them 2 seconds. If they can do it, Triv will do it for you. I don't know.
It's the quintessential Dolphins play. I mean,
It is.
it is how they roll, and that's what you got to stop.
Have you been
There it is,
watching
there it
this
is.
on loop?
Yeah, look at this.
There it is.
Look at it.
That's it.
They're taking a team picture, and they still can't tackle them. It's amazing.
On 4th and 7. On 4th and 7. Just tackle the catch.
You know, and
Just tackle the catch, man.
You know, the other thing about this play is New England, Devin McCourty, he's mostly their center fielder. They actually moved him up and had him playing in the slot on that play because they were playing for the sticks to stop the first down, and the Dolphins noticed it, and they attacked the middle. So the Steelers have been trying to do a lot of things with Minkah Fitzpatrick and move him around and get him more involved. Assuming he returns, don't think Miami isn't going to know where number 39 is because they seem to figure that stuff out.
Hey, we saw Minkah in Cincinnati. He was ticked off from that 41-10 loss last year. Imagine Minkah in Miami. I think he's going to bring his A game. He has that pettiness, that revenge factor. I can see it coming out. So
plus Alabama lost last week, so that's going to really honk him off.
Yeah, it's going to add to it. Absolutely.
All right, guys, thanks as always for your time, and thanks to everybody at home for watching the Matchup Show presented by Unibet. We'll see everybody next week.